The station floated quietly at the edge of human space, a ring of steel and light surrounded by endless stars. It was called Horizon Bridge, a place built for first contact, research, and learning. Humans and aliens lived here together, watching each other closely, trying to understand what kind of future they could share. For Lyriel of the Velari, this place felt loud even when it was silent. She stood in the observation corridor, her slender blue hands folded in front of her chest, eyes wide as she watched humans move through the hallway below. They walked quickly, spoke freely, laughed without reason, and argued without fear. To Velari eyes, humans looked chaotic. Their emotions spilled out openly, uncontrolled. It made her uneasy. Lyriel was a junior biological researcher, recently assigned to study human life systems. It was supposed to be simple. Humans were physically weak, short-lived, and inefficient compared to Velari standards. That was what the data said, but the data felt wrong. Why do they move like that? She whispered to herself, watching a human child run past a group of adults, laughing loudly. Velari children were never allowed to run freely. Their growth was monitored from the moment they were formed. Formed, not born. Lyriel's discomfort grew as she remembered her task for the day. She turned away from the window and moved down the corridor toward the human biology wing. Her steps were careful, almost silent. She still felt like a guest inside a world not made for her. Inside the lab, rows of transparent screens glowed softly. Human medical diagrams rotated in the air. At the center of the room stood Lieutenant Daniel Carter, a human officer assigned as her liaison. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes and a calm presence. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Good morning, Lyriel," he said. "You're early." She hesitated. "Time efficiency is preferred," she replied carefully. Human language still felt strange in her mouth. Daniel nodded. "Fair enough. What are you studying today?" Lyriel's fingers tightened slightly. "Human population sustainability." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's a big topic." "Yes," she said softly. "That is why I must ask directly." She paused, clearly uncomfortable. Daniel noticed and waited, sensing her tension. "How do humans continue?" she asked. Daniel blinked. "Continue? Your species," she clarified. "You do not use cloning chambers. You do not rely on external incubation tanks. Your medical records show no standardized growth facilities, yet your population grows." Daniel leaned back slightly, realization slowly forming. "Oh, you mean reproduction?" "Yes," Lyriel said. "Explain." Daniel hesitated now. He had explained many things to aliens: war, hunger, art, death. But this felt different. He chose his words carefully. "Well," he said, "humans reproduce biologically. Two adults create new life together. The child develops naturally inside the mother until birth." Lyriel froze. "Inside," she repeated. Daniel nodded. "Yes." Her eyes widened. The faint glow of her skin dimmed slightly, a Velari sign of shock. "That is extremely dangerous," she said. Daniel gave a small smile. "It can be." "You willingly place an undeveloped life inside another unstable biological form?" she asked, voice rising. "For months?" "Yes," he said calmly. "And the carrier experiences pain, physical damage, hormonal imbalance," she continued, reading rapidly from her data pad. "Sometimes permanent injury, sometimes death." Daniel did not argue. "That's true." Lyriel stepped back as if the air itself had grown sharp. "You do this all the time?" she asked, horrified. Daniel met her gaze. He did not laugh. He did not dismiss her fear. "Yes," he said simply, "we do." The room was silent. Lyriel looked at the floating diagrams again, but now they felt alive, fragile, dangerous. "Why?" she asked. "Your species values survival. This method is inefficient, risk-heavy, emotionally destabilizing." Daniel folded his arms. "Because that's how we've always done it, because it connects us. Because life isn't something we manufacture, it's something we protect." Lyriel did not understand. Not really. On Velari worlds, reproduction was clean, perfect. Genetic material was selected by councils. Growth happened in nutrient chambers. No pain, no risk, no emotional attachment until maturity. This human way felt wild. That night, Lyriel returned to her quarters but could not rest. Her mind replayed Daniel's words over and over. Protect. Why protect something that could be grown safely? She accessed archived human recordings, historical footage, medical logs, family records. She watched a human female lying in a medical bed, gripping another human's hand. Pain marked her face, but her eyes were focused, determined. Doctors moved quickly around her. Voices shouted numbers. The room was full of fear. Then came a cry, small, weak. The woman cried too, not in pain but in relief. She reached out, holding the tiny human close to her chest. Lyriel's breathing slowed. Why was she smiling? Why did the pain not matter? Lyriel watched more. Humans staying awake for days to care for newborns. Humans risking resources, time, safety, all for fragile offspring that could not even walk. On Velari worlds, the weak were optimized before release. Humans did not optimize. They endured. The next day, Lyriel followed Daniel through the public habitat ring. Humans and Velari mingled here, a shared space. They passed a small human family, 2 adults, 1 child. The child stumbled and fell. Lyriel flinched. Before she could react, the human parents rushed forward, lifting the child, checking every limb, voices filled with panic and care. The child laughed moments later, unharmed. The parents laughed too, relief washing over them. Lyriel felt something twist inside her chest. That child could have been damaged, she said quietly. Daniel nodded, but he was. You accept that risk, she said, every day. Yes, Daniel replied, that's what being human is. She looked at him. Your species should not have survived. Daniel chuckled softly. We hear that a lot. Later that cycle, alarms echoed through Horizon Bridge. Lyriel was in the Velari research wing when the emergency lights activated. Her communicator pulsed with urgent signals. Containment failure, a voice announced. Velari incubation sector compromised. Her blood ran cold. She rushed toward the sector, heart pounding. Dozens of Velari young were stored there, unreleased, still developing. Their chambers were failing. Velari engineers crowded the room, panic visible even through their disciplined behavior. The system is unresponsive, one said. Backup power is failing. They will not survive without stabilization, another added. Lyriel felt her legs weaken. Then she saw humans entering the room, medical officers, engineers, Daniel among them. You don't know our biology, a Velari leader protested. Daniel did not stop. We know life support. We know emergencies. Tell us what matters most. There was no time for pride. Lyriel watched as humans worked without perfect knowledge. They adapted. They improvised. They supported failing systems manually, taking risks Velari machines were designed to avoid. Hours passed. Finally, the chambers stabilized. The Velari young lived. Silence followed, heavy, emotional. Lyriel stared at the humans, exhaustion etched into their faces. They had risked themselves without hesitation, without guarantees, just like their reproduction. Later, Daniel sat on the floor, back against the wall, breathing slowly. Lyriel approached him. You acted without certainty, she said. Daniel nodded. That's normal for us. Why? She asked again. He looked at her, tired but sincere. Because life doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Lyriel understood something then, not fully but enough to shake her beliefs. Human reproduction was not a mistake. It was a reflection of who they were. They accepted pain, they accepted fear, they accepted risk, and somehow they kept going. As Lyriel looked out at the stars through the station window, one thought echoed in her mind. Humans were fragile. And yet terrifyingly strong. The station returned to its normal rhythm, but Lyriel did not. She walked the corridors of Horizon Bridge with slower steps now, her thoughts heavy and restless. The image of human hands steadying fragile Velari life replayed again and again in her mind. Machines had failed. Humans had not. That alone disturbed her. In the Velari Research Council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Transparent walls shimmered softly as senior Velari scientists gathered. Their posture was controlled, their expressions calm, but their voices carried unease. The incubation failure proves the risk of shared facilities, one elder said. Human presence increases unpredictability. They interfered, another added, without full biological knowledge. They saved them, Lyriel said. The room went quiet. Several eyes turned toward her, surprised. Junior researchers rarely spoke without permission. Lyriel straightened. Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not stop. If the humans had not acted, the young would have perished. Our systems were too slow to adapt. An elder folded his hands. Their methods were reckless. Yes, Lyriel replied, but effective. That word echoed longer than she expected. The council dismissed her shortly after, not angry but unsettled. As Lyriel left the chamber, she felt something shift inside her. Speaking up had felt dangerous, and yet right. Later that cycle, she returned to the human biology wing alone. No official task had been assigned. She came because she needed answers. The screens activated as she approached, responding to her access code. This time, she did not study diagrams. She accessed personal records. Stories, human journals. She read about fear during pregnancy, about doubt, about loss, about hope that refused to fade even after tragedy. Some entries were joyful, others were painful, none were empty. Lyriel paused on one record written by a human female who had lost a child during birth decades ago. "I would do it again," the woman had written, "because love is not safe, but it is worth it." Lyriel closed the file slowly. Worth it. That concept felt strange. Velari decisions were based on outcomes, probabilities, efficiency. Worth was measured in success rates. Humans measured it in feeling. A soft sound behind her made Lyriel turn. Daniel stood at the doorway holding a container. "I thought I'd find you here," he said gently. "You monitor my movements?" she asked, half curious, half cautious. He smiled. "Only when you skip scheduled rest cycles." She looked down slightly. "I am processing." "I figured," Daniel said. He held out the container, food, or what humans call it. She examined it carefully before accepting. "You eat frequently." "Another inefficient habit," he said with a shrug. They sat together in silence for a moment. Lyriel watched him eat, noticing the relaxed way he moved, as if danger were a distant thought. "Why do humans form pair bonds?" she asked suddenly. "Your reproduction does not require emotional attachment for biological success." Daniel paused. "That's true." "Then why insist on it?" she pressed. "It complicates the process, increases emotional damage if failure occurs." Daniel considered this. Because raising a child isn't just about survival, it's about teaching, protecting, being there. "Machines can perform those tasks," Lyriel said. "They can perform," Daniel replied. "They can't care," Lyriel frowned. "Care is not measurable." "No," he agreed, "but it changes everything." Days passed. Lyriel continued her research, but now she included human social behavior. She watched families interact. Humans with no genetic connection still choosing to raise children. Adoption, they called it. One evening, she observed a human male teaching a child to repair a small device. The child made mistakes, dropping tools, laughing at failures. The adult never raised his voice. He guided patiently. The child finally succeeded and looked up, eyes shining. Pride. Lyriel felt it ripple through her without warning. A strange warmth spread through her chest. She stepped back, startled. Velari were not designed for emotional overflow. That same cycle, Horizon Bridge received distress signals from a nearby mining outpost. Human-operated. Communication was weak, life support unstable. A rescue team was assembled quickly. Daniel was assigned. Lyriel found herself standing at the docking bay as preparations began. "You are not cleared for this mission," Daniel said gently when he noticed her. "I am aware," she replied, "but I wish to observe." Daniel studied her face, then nodded. "Stay behind the barrier." The shuttle launched, vanishing into the dark. Hours later, the station waited in silence. When the shuttle returned, its hull was damaged. Medical teams rushed forward. Several humans were injured, one critically. Lyriel watched as doctors worked urgently, hands moving fast, voices firm but emotional. "He has a child," one medic said quietly. That single sentence changed everything. Resources were redirected. Risks were taken. The injured human survived. Lyriel approached Daniel afterward. His arm was bandaged, his face pale. "You risked death," she said. Daniel nodded. "Part of the job." "For one individual," she said. "For a future," he corrected. That night Lyriel dreamed. She dreamed of standing in a vast chamber filled with incubation pods, all identical, perfect, silent. Then she dreamed of a small human child reaching out, unsteady, calling for help. She woke suddenly, heart racing. Velari were not supposed to dream like that. The following day, she requested permission to present new findings to the Velari Council. This time, she was allowed to speak longer. "Humans accept biological inefficiency," she said. "But in doing so, they develop adaptability, emotional resilience, rapid decision-making under stress." An elder tilted his head. "You imply emotional weakness is strength." "Yes," Lyriel said, "because it forces growth." She showed footage of the rescue, of the incubation crisis, of families supporting each other. "Human reproduction binds individuals together," she continued. "It creates networks of responsibility. When one life is threatened, many respond." Silence followed. After the session, Lyriel returned to the observation corridor where her journey had begun. She watched humans pass by, no longer seeing chaos. She saw connection. Daniel joined her quietly. "You look different," he said. "I am different," she replied. She looked at the stars beyond the glass. "Your reproduction still frightens me," she admitted. "But I no longer believe it is wrong." Daniel smiled softly. "That's a start." Lyriel placed a hand against the transparent wall, feeling the faint vibration of the station. For the first time, she wondered not how humans survived despite their flaws, but how they survived because of them. The idea that humans survived because of their flaws stayed with Lyriel longer than she expected. In the cycles that followed, Horizon Bridge became busier. More ships arrived. More species passed through. The station felt less like an experiment and more like a living city. Humans adapted easily to the noise and change. Velari observers did not. Lyriel watched everything. She watched how humans argued loudly in public and then shared meals hours later. She watched how they formed friendships quickly, sometimes carelessly, but defended those bonds fiercely. Most of all, she watched how they treated their young. One morning, she was assigned to accompany a mixed-species inspection team through the civilian habitat ring. It was a simple task: observe, record, report. As they moved through the ring, Lyriel noticed a gathering ahead. Human voices were raised, not in anger but urgency. A human female sat on the floor, her back against the wall. Her breathing was shallow. Several humans knelt around her, speaking softly. Lyriel froze. "She is carrying new life," one medic said into a communicator. "We need a medical bay now." Lyriel's chest tightened. "Here, on the station." "Now." The Velari inspection leader hesitated. "This area is not designated for." Daniel pushed past him. "We don't have time," Daniel said firmly. "Clear the corridor." The humans moved with practiced speed. Someone removed their jacket and placed it under the woman's head. Another held her hand. Another spoke calmly, explaining each step. Lyriel stood rigid, horror and fascination mixing inside her. "This is unsafe," she whispered. "She should be transferred to a controlled chamber." Daniel glanced at her. "We are the control," he said. The woman cried out, pain sharp and sudden. Lyriel flinched, her instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. But the humans did not panic. They stayed. They encouraged. They endured. Medical staff arrived within minutes, guiding the woman carefully onto a stretcher. As she was taken away, she looked at Daniel, fear in her eyes. "My child," she whispered. "He'll be okay," Daniel said without hesitation. Lyriel knew he could not be certain, and yet he said it anyway. Later, in the quiet of the observation lounge, Lyriel sat alone. Her hands trembled slightly. She replayed the scene again and again. Pain, risk, uncertainty, choice. Why did humans choose this? Her thoughts were interrupted by a Velari transmission, priority level high. She straightened as the holographic image of the Velari High Council formed before her. "We have reviewed your reports," the lead counselor said. "They are concerning." Lyriel lowered her gaze respectfully. "I have only recorded observed behavior." "You show signs of emotional alignment with humans," another counselor said. "This compromises objectivity." Lyriel's heart raced. "Understanding does not equal compromise." "Sometimes it does," the counselor replied. "You will return to Velari space after the next supply rotation." The word struck harder than she expected. Return. Leave Horizon Bridge. Leave humans. Leave understanding unfinished. "As ordered," she said quietly. The transmission ended. That cycle, Lyriel sought Daniel. She found him in the training deck, running drills with other human officers. Sweat marked their uniforms. Their movements were imperfect, varied, human. When the session ended, Daniel noticed her standing alone. "You okay?" he asked. "I have been recalled," she said. Daniel was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry." "So am I," she replied. They walked together through the station, neither speaking much. At last, they reached the observation corridor. "I still do not fully understand your reproduction," Lyriel said. "But I understand what it creates." Daniel leaned against the wall. "And what's that?" "Responsibility," she said. "Connection, sacrifice." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, that sounds about right." A warning alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Not a drill. Lyriel's communicator activated automatically. "Unidentified vessel entering restricted space," the station AI announced. "Origin unknown." Security teams mobilized instantly. Daniel's posture changed. Calm replaced by focus. "I have to go," he said. Lyriel followed without thinking. They reached the command center just as sensor data filled the screens. The vessel was small but armed. Its trajectory was unstable. "Pirates," a human officer said. "They're desperate." "Boarding attempt likely," another added. The vessel ignored all communication requests. "Evacuate civilian sectors," the commander ordered. Lyriel's thoughts raced. Civilians. Children. Families. Human reproduction meant civilians were everywhere. The pirate vessel slammed into the outer docking ring with violent force. The station shuddered. Emergency bulkheads began to close, but one sector failed to seal. The civilian habitat ring. Lyriel's blood ran cold. "That section houses families," she said. "I know," Daniel replied. "That's where I'm going." He grabbed a weapon and a medical kit. "You will not survive alone," Lyriel said sharply. Daniel met her eyes. "I don't plan to be alone." She hesitated only a second before following him. They moved through damaged corridors filled with smoke and flickering lights. Human security teams spread out, protecting civilians, guiding them toward safety. Lyriel saw humans shielding children with their own bodies, parents refusing to leave until their offspring were safe. Inefficient, dangerous, effective. The pirates breached the corridor ahead. Their weapons were crude but powerful. Chaos erupted. Daniel pulled Lyriel behind cover. "You stay here," he ordered. "No," she said, surprising herself. "I can assist." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, stay close." They advanced together. A pirate lunged from the smoke. Daniel reacted instantly, pushing Lyriel aside and taking the impact himself. Pain flashed across his face, but he did not fall. Lyriel felt something break inside her. Fear turned into something sharper. She activated her emergency field device, slamming the pirate into the wall with controlled force. Daniel stared at her. Nice timing. They moved on. In a nearby compartment, they found a group of civilians trapped behind debris. Among them was the pregnant woman from earlier. She looked up when she saw Daniel. "You said he'd be okay," she whispered. "And he will be," Daniel said again. Lyriel realized something then. Humans did not promise safety, they promised effort. They cleared the debris together, evacuating the civilians just as security forces secured the area. The pirate threat was neutralized soon after. When the station finally stabilized, exhaustion settled over everyone. Lyriel sat beside Daniel in the medical bay. His injuries were minor. He would recover. The pregnant woman had survived too. Her child lived. Tears filled Lyriel's eyes without warning. She did not wipe them away. In that moment, the horror she once felt toward human reproduction faded into something else entirely. A deep, aching respect. Humans created life through pain. They protected it through sacrifice. And they defended it with everything they had. As Lyriel prepared to leave Horizon Bridge, she realized the truth she would carry back to her people. Human reproduction was not a flaw in their design. It was the reason they refused to give up. Even when the universe tried to break them, Lyriel's departure date arrived faster than she expected. Her quarters were almost empty. Valeri did not keep many personal items, but somehow the room still felt hollow. The soft hum of Horizon Bridge vibrated through the walls, familiar now, almost comforting. Soon she would leave it behind. She stood near the viewport, watching small ships move like quiet sparks across the dark. Humans moved between stars with such confidence, as if the universe belonged to them. Valari's ships were faster, cleaner, more precise, but they never lingered. Humans lingered everywhere. A soft knock came at the door. Daniel stepped inside when she opened it. He held a small data crystal in his hand. "I heard you're leaving on the next rotation," he said. "Yes," Lyriel replied. "The council has confirmed it." Daniel nodded, then handed her the crystal. "These are my reports, unofficial ones, personal notes. Thought they might help you explain us better." Lyriel accepted it carefully. "You trust me with this," he smiled faintly. "You've earned it." They stood in silence for a moment, neither quite sure what to say. Humans were good at filling silence with words. Valari usually avoided it. Now both hesitated. "Your people may not accept your conclusions," Daniel said finally. "They may not," Lyriel agreed, "but I will still present them." He studied her face. "You've changed." "So have you," she said. Daniel chuckled softly. "Fair." Before either could speak again, the station alarm sounded, not loud but insistent. Priority alert. Lyriel's communicator activated immediately. "All senior representatives report to the Central Forum," the station AI announced. "Urgent diplomatic matter." Lyriel and Daniel exchanged a glance. "Looks like you're not leaving just yet," Daniel said. They moved quickly toward the forum chamber. Inside, humans, Valari, and several other species gathered, tension thick in the air. At the center of the chamber, a holographic projection flickered to life. A Valari command vessel. The High Council. Lyriel's chest tightened. The lead counselor's image sharpened. "We have received alarming intelligence," he said. "A hostile force has entered this sector. They target multi-species stations." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "They destroy population centers," the counselor continued, "especially those containing noncombatants. Children, families." Humans shifted uncomfortably. "Our recommendation," the counselor said, "is immediate evacuation of all Valari personnel. Humans are advised to do the same." A human commander stepped forward. "Evacuating Horizon Bridge is not possible on short notice. There are too many civilians." "That is not our concern," the counselor replied coldly. "Our priority is Valari survival." Lyriel felt something harden inside her. "These civilians are not resources," she said suddenly. "They are lives." The counselor turned his gaze toward her. "You speak emotionally." "Yes," Lyriel replied, "because emotion is what makes humans respond faster than machines." The chamber fell quiet. The hostile force will arrive within 2 cycles, the counselor said. This discussion is concluded. The projection faded. Human commanders immediately began planning defenses. Horizon Bridge was not a war station. Its shields were limited, its weapons minimal. "We can't fight a fleet," one officer said. "But we can protect people," another replied. Lyriel watched them work, coordinate, argue, agree. No single authority, no perfect order, but they moved. She approached the command table. "The Velari Council will not assist," she said, "but I will." Daniel looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "I have access to Velari systems," she said. "Shield harmonics. Emergency protocols. I can help reinforce the station." "You'd be disobeying your council," Daniel said. "Yes," she replied calmly. He studied her face, then nodded. "Welcome to being human." The next cycle was chaos. Humans evacuated non-essential sectors, reinforcing civilian areas, converting research labs into shelters. Families crowded together. Fear was everywhere, but so was movement. Lyriel worked alongside human engineers, adjusting frequencies, rerouting power. Their systems were different, but their goal was the same: protect the future. As she worked, she noticed something else. Humans did not separate by species or rank. Parents protected children that were not their own. Strangers shared supplies without hesitation. This was reproduction's legacy, she realized. It trained them to think beyond themselves. The hostile fleet arrived sooner than expected. Dark shapes appeared on the outer sensors, massive and silent. Weapons fire erupted. The station shook violently. Hull breaches opened in outer rings. Emergency fields snapped into place. Humans ran toward danger instead of away from it. Lyriel found herself in a shelter packed with civilians. Children cried. Adults whispered reassurances they did not fully believe. A young human child tugged at her sleeve. "Are we going to die?" the child asked. Lyriel froze. Velari did not lie to children, humans did. "No," she said gently, "you are not." She did not know if it was true, but she understood now why humans said such things. The station trembled again. Lights flickered. In the command center, Daniel coordinated defense teams, voice steady despite the destruction around them. "They're targeting power relays," an officer shouted. "We can't hold much longer," another said. Lyriel accessed her communicator. "I can overload the Velari shield emitters," she said. "It will burn them out, but it will buy time." Daniel turned toward her. "And you?" "I will remain at the control node," she replied. "That section will be exposed," he said. "Yes," she answered simply. Daniel stared at her. "You don't have to do this." "I choose to," she said. She left before he could argue. The control node was silent except for alarms. Lyriel interfaced with the Velari system, fingers moving fast. Energy surged through the station, shields flaring brighter than before. Enemy fire struck again and again, but held. Inside the shelters, civilians felt the difference. Hope flickered. Then the control node shook violently. Structural failure warnings blared. Lyriel struggled to remain conscious as debris fell around her. Pain shot through her side. Her vision blurred. She thought of incubation chambers, perfect, safe, empty. Then she thought of human families, messy, loud, alive. She smiled faintly as she triggered the final override. The shield surged one last time, long enough. The hostile fleet withdrew, their attack aborted. Victory came quietly. Rescue teams found Lyriel hours later, unconscious but alive. When she woke in the medical bay, Daniel was there. "You're stubborn," he said softly. She tried to sit up and failed. "I learned from the best." He laughed, then grew serious. "You saved thousands." "We saved them," she corrected. News of the defense spread quickly. Even the Velari Council could not ignore it. When Lyriel finally stood before them again, she was no longer a junior researcher trembling with uncertainty. "You risked extinction-level loss," the counselor said. "Yes," Lyriel replied. "So do humans, every time they create life." Silence followed. "They survive because they care," she continued. because they accept pain and uncertainty in exchange for a future. The council did not answer immediately, but for the first time they listened. As Lyriel looked back toward Horizon Bridge, toward humans rebuilding and laughing even after disaster, she understood the truth fully now. Human reproduction did not horrify her anymore. It explained everything. Time passed, and Horizon Bridge healed. Scars remained on its outer rings, dark marks where weapons had struck, patches where metal had been replaced in a hurry. Humans did not hide the damage. They treated it like a memory, a reminder that survival was something earned, not guaranteed. Lyriel walked the rebuilt corridors slowly. Her steps were careful but no longer uncertain. Other Velari passed her now and inclined their heads with respect. That alone felt strange. She had been allowed to stay. The Velari Council had not announced it as permission. They called it continued observation. Lyriel understood the language of pride well enough, but she stayed. Humans welcomed her as if the question had never existed. In the weeks after the attack, the station changed in small but important ways. Velari engineers worked side by side with human technicians, not just exchanging data but ideas. Velari shield theory merged with human redundancy systems. The result was not perfect, but it was strong, very strong. Lyriel spent much of her time in the civilian rings now. She observed less and participated more. That was new for her. One cycle, she found herself sitting on the floor of a shared habitat room, surrounded by human children. They had decided she was interesting. "You glow when you think," one child said. "That is involuntary," Lyriel replied honestly. "Cool," another said. They laughed easily, loudly, without concern for how much space they occupied. Lyriel used to find that unsettling. Now she found it comforting. Nearby, the pregnant woman from before sat in a chair, watching the children with tired but gentle eyes. Her child had been born safely days earlier, healthy, loud, very loud. Lyriel had visited the medical bay afterward. She had expected fear, pain, trauma. Instead, she found smiles. "I was scared," the woman had admitted, "but I never thought about stopping." "Why?" Lyriel had asked. The woman had looked down at her child, tiny fingers wrapped around her own. "Because some things matter more than fear." That answer stayed with Lyriel. Later, she stood once again before the Velari High Council, this time not as a junior researcher but as a witness. The chamber was the same, perfect symmetry, calm lighting, controlled atmosphere, and yet it felt smaller now. "You have completed your extended observation," the lead counselor said. "Present your final conclusion." Lyriel stepped forward. "Humans reproduce through a process that includes pain, risk, and emotional instability," she began. "From a purely biological efficiency standpoint, it is flawed." Several counselors nodded. "However," she continued, "this flaw creates adaptive strength. Human reproduction forces individuals to cooperate. It creates emotional bonds that extend beyond logic. These bonds motivate sacrifice, innovation, and defense beyond programmed limits." She activated a projection. Images filled the chamber. Humans shielding children during the attack. Engineers working without rest. Parents refusing evacuation until others were safe. "Humans do not optimize life," Lyriel said. "They value it." A counselor tilted his head. "Value is not survival." "It is," Lyriel replied, "because it creates purpose." She took a breath. "Our species relies on perfection and control. Humans rely on care. When systems fail, humans do not wait for correction. They act." Silence stretched. "What do you propose?" the lead counselor asked. "Change," Lyriel said. "Not imitation, understanding, cooperative development, cultural exchange, shared protection of non-combatants." "And reproduction?" the counselor asked. Lyriel did not hesitate. "We should learn from it, not the method but the meaning." The council did not issue an answer that day, but they did not dismiss her either. That alone was historic. Back on Horizon Bridge, life continued. Daniel found Lyriel in the observation corridor one evening staring out at the stars. "You always end up here," he said. "This is where I first questioned everything," she replied. He leaned beside her. "Council meeting didn't end in disaster. That's a win." "Yes," she said softly. "By Velari standards, it is revolutionary," Daniel smiled. "Humans are good at that." A small alert sounded on Lyriel's communicator. She glanced at it, then froze. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "The Velari Council has approved a pilot program," she said slowly. "Joint protection zones for mixed-species civilian populations, human advisory roles included." Daniel's eyes widened. "You did that." "We did," Lyriel corrected. The corridor grew quiet again. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "Yes." "Back when we first talked," he said, "you were terrified of how we reproduce." She nodded. "I was." "And now," she looked at the stars, then back at the station behind the glass, at the lives inside it. "Now I believe it is why you survive," she said. "Not despite the pain, but because you accept it." Daniel exhaled slowly. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us." Time moved forward. New stations were built using shared designs. Human families lived alongside Velari workers. Velari young were no longer raised in complete isolation. They were introduced to mentors, to community. Not perfect, but warmer. Lyriel visited a Velari development center months later. She watched young Velari interact freely, stumble, ask questions without immediate correction. It was messy and alive. On Horizon Bridge, a small ceremony took place. Nothing official, just humans and Velari gathered together. The human child who once asked Lyriel if they were going to die ran past her, laughing. He was taller now, stronger, alive. Lyriel felt her skin glow softly as she watched him go. Human reproduction had once horrified her because it lacked control. Now she understood the truth. It created people who refused to give up, people who would face fear, pain, and loss, and still choose to protect the future. In a universe full of machines, calculations, and cold survival logic, humans carried something dangerous: hope. And they carried it forward, generation after generation, not because it was safe, but because it mattered. That was why, no matter how fragile they seemed, humans endured. And that was why the galaxy would never truly defeat them.